Okay, I think now we're here. 61 for 2. That was some first session in this England-India Test series. Steve Harmison, VVS Laxman with me on ESPN Cricket for match day. Some session there, gentlemen. India picked up a couple of wickets. Jasprit Bumrah went 36.4 overs in the World Test Championship final, VVS, without a wicket. It took him just 5 balls to get this one. Is India the happier team, or is that a shared session for you?
Well, I think it's a shared session. There's no doubt about it. But again, Jasprit Bumrah started off really well. What we discussed in the pre-show, the length where the Indian bowlers will pitch the ball regularly will matter a lot. And straight away, right from the first over, you could see the difference, a huge difference from the World Test Championship final to the first over Jasprit Bumrah bowled today. I think he was spot on. The ball was definitely swinging in the air. The pitch also was assisting the fast bowler. And I thought the England batsmen well touched lucky because there were a lot of times they were getting beaten, but they were not able to get that outside edge. But overall, I think England also will be really pleased because the kind of penetration and the relentlessness you saw from the Indian bowlers, England should have been at least 4 wickets down. But they're just two wickets down. Their main batsman is out there in the middle. So I think it is definitely a shade session.
Steve, your thoughts? India bowled well?
Yeah, I thought India bowled well. I thought the England, when you get the test match in England, you get a little bit of movement first hour. The overhead conditions made the ball swing, nipped about a bit. I thought England rode their luck, which I think they earned the right to luck because they played. They didn't play outside off stump. Sibley leaves the ball very, very well. You look at Sibley's got 18 off 67 balls. Joe Root's been in 10 balls. He's got 12. This is the way Dom Sibley plays. So I thought England coped with the movement not too badly. I think India, it's all about patience. I think they got the ball to swing from wider. And I think Siraj possibly showed his naivety a little bit. He got the ball to move from wider, but then when he went a bit straighter, because he's probably not used to the English conditions, it didn't swing, got tucked away a few times. I thought Zach Crawley batted reasonably well. The ball the wicket, the setup from Jasprit Bumrah for Rory Burns was perfect. It's an absolute beauty for what you want as a bowler. Angled seam right across the left-hander, lovely, going away. A lot talked about Bumrah being a bit rusty in the World Test Championship. He just brought that one back. Beautiful, fantastic setup. And it was a great first over to set the tone for India.
Yeah, speaking of Bumrah, VVS, we have spoken of, whether he's getting a bit tired or whether it's fatigue. We didn't see the Bumrah we expected to in the World Test Championship final. How important would that first over have been for him at the start of a long series to just get a wicket first up?
Yeah, I think very important. There's no doubt because you want to start off well. And there's a lot of expectation from Jasprit Bumrah because even though he has been a regular member of Indian white ball cricket, but I think in the opportunities he got to play in Test matches, he's impressed everyone because he's an out-and-out match winner. Because he is really taking over, and that's why I was a little surprised with the kind of efficiency he showed in that World Test Championship final because there's so much of expectation riding on him. But today he showed that he's really worked hard since the finals at Southampton till today in the nets or in the match scenarios because getting the length and being absolutely spot on from your first over matters a lot, and that's what we saw from Jasprit Bumrah. And I have a feeling that this will be a big series from Jasprit Bumrah. And I also have a feeling that if Jasprit Bumrah strikes well, Indian team will always be dominating. He's like how Virat Kohli is important in the batting department. For me, Jasprit Bumrah is that bowler I look up to in the bowling department.
When we speak of his test record, VVS, it's very good. If you look at the numbers, 83 wickets, 20 tests, going in the mid-20s. He's played a lot of his tests overseas in what you consider slightly more helpful conditions. There's no doubt he's a quality bowler, but does he still have an question or a point to prove as a frontline test match bowler? Bumrah, all his white ball credentials are put to rest, but is there still something for Bumrah to just establish himself as a test ball bowler, and that'll happen in this series?
Well, the only thing which he requires to prove is to prove to himself. It's not to prove it to the world because in the limited opportunities he's got, and I understand why he didn't play too many test matches in India because he's such an important member in that Indian white ball bowling lineup, because he's the go-to bowler for Virat Kohli with the new ball in the middle overs or at the death. So that's why the workload management is very critical when we're talking about Bumrah. Whereas this is a perfect series for him, because what you see in a 5 Test match series is it's not only about your skill, it's about your fitness, it's about your mental endurance, it's about your mental toughness, it's also about having that patience, understanding the situation, when to attack, when to be on the defensive, when to restrict the flow of runs, and all this will be tested in this series for Jasprit Bumrah. And also how to fulfill the expectations of his team members and his fans, because sometimes you don't give that enough due, because sometimes the pressure of fulfilling the expectation, the burden of that responsibility may force the bowler or the player to underperform. So that is a big thing for Jasprit Bumrah as far as this series is concerned, because there's a lot of expectations from him.
You see him, Steve, as a bowler that you'd like to play in all 5 tests of a 5-match series, or a player you'd better not play, or rather not play in every test to try and have that sort of impact that we talk of the likes of Mark Wood or a Jofra Archer? Steve, I've got to try and I just lost you there. You could just start over. I've got your voice back now, please.
Yeah, I think it's a challenge of the bowler, the durability. Like Vivier says, you over 5 Test matches. It's more your stamina. It's more your ability to come back. For what we've seen so far, we've seen Jasprit Bumrah bowl 7 overs, 1 for 16. What we're going to see after tea? What we're going to see after tea when England are possibly 5 down, 6 down, possibly more, when Virat throws the ball and thinks, right, I need a wicket. I need somebody clean the tail up. And that is something that over the course of 5-match series could be a huge challenge on a body. Look, if you're an Indian fan or if you're Virat Kohli, you want Jasprit Bumrah to play all 5 Test matches. But I can understand, because of the white ball aspect of his game, that he hasn't played as many Test matches as he had. He's a superstar, and you want your superstars to be playing in every game possible. I think what he's shown in this 7 overs is that he's worked very, very hard in English conditions to get himself in a better position to face England, because against New Zealand, I thought he was just behind. He's like a racehorse. You're getting them ready a racehorse ready for the big race. And when they're getting them prepared, you're not sure what you're going to get with them, and getting them there is just the challenge. And I think it looks as though India have got the timings perfect, because he was just short of a gallop in Southampton. I think he's ready now. Can they get through 5 Test matches? Well, if he's taking wickets, I know exactly what it's like. If you're taking wickets, your body doesn't feel half as sore as what it does when you're not taking wickets and you're going all around the park. If he's bowling well and he's got England where he wants them, I have no reason why Jasprit Bumrah can't play 5 Test matches.
Okay. Also, I'd just like to add one thing, Ronak, is how much difference it makes when you're preparing for a certain format. Because if you remember World Test Championship, just before that, all the Indian players were busy with the IPL, and the length or the lines which Bumrah or Shami were bowling were very effective lengths and lines for T20 format. Whereas today, right from the word go, you saw him bowl a lot fuller. He was looking more to swing the ball than actually hit the deck. And that's why preparing for a format, it requires different skill set, and that's why I emphasize a lot on preparation. I just feel that the Indian bowlers played a lot of T20 cricket, a lot of white ball cricket before the World Test Championship final, whereas now they knew that task was cut out. They were preparing for Test match cricket, and suddenly you see that preparation has been very fruitful, and I feel right from the word go, whether it's Bumrah, whether it's Shami, Shardul, or Siraj, bowl to the conditions or what is required to be effective in English conditions.
All right. Well, it's just the start of what promises to be a long tour for Jasprit Bumrah, but it started well. But there are days that you'll end up bowling like Mohammad Shami as well, Steve, where you bowl very well, 7 overs, 2 maidens, none for 9, beat the bat a couple of times or more than that, and still don't end up with a wicket. Or you could feel for the fast bowler, can't you, Steve?
You can, absolutely you can. And I remember being at Edgbaston, first Test match of this summer. England got to lunch, I think about 60 for none. New Zealand bowled great, absolutely brilliant. It's the first time I think England had got to lunch on day one, unbroken since 2011, Cook and Strauss. And you're thinking, if I was in that unit, I'm thinking, how have I not got a wicket here? I've bowled a hell of a lot worse and come off with 2 for. That's what happens. That's what I'm trying to say. Patience is huge in England. because there is always something happening, and you do not want to go either too full, too short, chase it, thinking I've got to take wickets. If you constantly put the ball in the right area, which Shami did, your luck will change, and all of a sudden, one brings a new batsman in. Very, very difficult to get started. You pick up another one, then you pick up another one. All of a sudden, when you look at lunch, you've got 0 for 9 or 7 overs. By the time tea time comes, you might not bowl as well. You could have 3 for 25 off 11 overs, 12 overs. So it's about being patient in English conditions. It's about having a captain that understands where he needs his fielders. And I thought the field positions for Shami were very, very good. He bowled, I think he bowled 7 overs where he bowled 20% of the balls on a length, good length, which you would say possibly should have been a bit fuller. And all of a sudden, you as a captain, you're thinking, well, if I ask him to bowl a bit fuller, I might need him to have an extra cover, might need a little bit more protection. He didn't do that. He stuck to his game plan, stuck to his guns. If he does that throughout the whole Test match, it would not surprise me if he gets a bag full of wickets.
Yeah, it seems like he's just carrying on VVS from that World Test Championship final. It was a curious choice for the new ball. You said you would have liked to see Siraj take the new ball. Kohli went with Shami. He did seem like the standout bowler of that first session, even though he didn't get a wicket.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason why he stood out was his seam presentation. If you see the seam presentation of Bumrah, Shardul Thakur, or Siraj, I thought Shami was much better than that. Upright seam position, the wrist behind the ball. And that's why I think he was getting the ball to move in the air and also off the pitch. And as Steve rightly mentioned, it's important to be patient. And that's what we saw from Shami, even in the World Test Championship final in the first innings, where he was very impressive in the first spell, but he didn't get the reward which he deserved. But then the next day he came and he just altered his length a bit, but then he was so dangerous for the New Zealand batsman. And I thought he's always been that unlucky bowler who beats the batsman so many times, but doesn't induce that outside edge. And such bowlers should definitely have the backing of the captain or the teammates, because it's important and imperative that the teammates also go and tell to him that, you bowl well, the wickets will come. You should be patient, because that's what England batsmen want you to do, is to be impatient. In the bargain, in trying to get wickets, you can leak runs. But as long as you're bowling and executing your plans, and as long as you're putting pressure on those English batsmen, you will be rewarded at some stage.
Okay, let's get a quick comment on both the wickets that did fall before we move on. Rory Burns, first over of the game itself. Now, he didn't have a happy time of it in the reverse tour that we had earlier this year, Steve, in India. But Rory Burns got runs, and I've got someone who doesn't like Rory Burns very much here with me. But anyway, right. And the reason I'm talking about Rory Burns is he still got runs against New Zealand. And yet, has he just got a good one today? Or is it again a reflection of a guy who's not had as much cricket or as much red ball cricket going into a big series?
I think a mixture of both, to be honest. I think what Rory got was a good setup by a bowler who was in control of the ball, favourable conditions. It's tough opening the bat. You go out there open the bat in English conditions against the Duke ball, which was like that. You have to have an element of luck, and what I think Rory Burns got was a very, very good bit of bowling. Seam was canted away from him, pushing him across, and India have done their homework, because all of a sudden you push Rory Burns across, especially early on, his head goes over towards cover point, and if you keep pushing him across the heavy head keeps going a bit further. He's got a very, very unusual technique. There's a lot of moving parts, and VVS will tell you if you've got things moving in all different directions as a batsman come against a class bowler, you will come unstuck. And I think that's all he did. He just head fall over, front foot didn't come down the pitch. It went across towards sort of extra cover point, which left a great big gaping hole between bat, the back trajectory coming down. And he's completely missed it, and the ball came back, and it was a good bit of bowling by Jasprit Bumrah, but not a wicket not a dismissal that Rory Burns will want to see again, because far too many times now he's off balance, and he gets out being off balance, where that ball that's a bit fuller, if he hits it, it tends to go in the air towards third slip gully area. If he misses it, well then, like we've seen today, he was all at sea and he was at LBW. But a good bit of bowling, but something that England fans have seen far too many times from Rory Burns. Off balance and it looks ordinary.
All right. Well, Zach Crawley's second wicket to fall, and I guess there's a mixture of a lot of things there. VVS, not just Siraj getting his wicket, but there seemed to be a lot happening in those 4 or 5 minutes. And credit to Virat Kohli for getting that review right after he just got one wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Credit to, I feel, in fact, Rishabh Pant. Yes,
Yeah.
Virat Kohli ultimately had to take the decision, but the conviction which Rishabh Pant showed in almost forcing his captain to take that review was great to see, because I always feel that as much as the captain, a lot of responsibility will be on the keeper, because he's seeing the action perfectly well. So he's behind the stumps, he's seeing the trajectory of the ball, how much it's moved in. And he was very convinced. Rishabh Pant was very convinced right from the word go that there was an inside edge. So I think great to see Rishabh Pant showing that confidence, and also Virat Kohli trusting his wicketkeeper. But again, great bit of bowling from Mohammad Shami. The line and the length, which is perfect to induce that mistake from the batsman. I think as long as Mohammad Shami doesn't get excited and pitches the ball right there on and outside the off stump, trying to hit the top of off stump, he's got enough in his wrist where he can get the ball to not only swing in there but also jag around on the pitch. So I think it was excellent combination of good review from Virat Kohli, but also great bowling from Mohammad Siraj. But I must say that Zach Crawley was unfortunate because he was shaping up really well. Zach Crawley is one of those young English batsmen who's got a very bright future ahead of him. Because amongst a lot of these youngsters, he's one who is technically correct. At the same time, he's got the temperament of being a very good test match batsman. So he would be unfortunate because he's done all the hard work, and just before lunch, he lost his wicket.
All right, I'm getting a comment here on our YouTube live which says Crawley reminds me of VVS. Hope he has a great career like VVS. Steve, would you endorse that comparison?
Well, if he has half a good career as VVS did, he'll do all right in English in an England Test year. I think he's a very, very good player. He's a fantastic prospect. There's a little technical change, from both Sibley and from Crawley. Sibley's got a little bit more sort of side on, so he doesn't get squared up. He hasn't got squared up as much. And I think the Indian bowlers have seen that and they tried to bowl that little bit straighter to him, which is not normally a good plan to Sibley, because he plays very, very well on the leg side. And I think Crawley has got a little bit more bent. He's bent his knees a little bit more. He's a little bit more crouched, not much, just a little bit more. And what that does, I think, it gives you a little bit more balance. Against New Zealand at the start of the year, he was very sort of stand-up-ish. He was very straight-legged, and his feet and hands weren't moving in the same direction. And then when he was going with his hands, his feet weren't going. He's playing away from his body. His weight was leaning back, and everything was going in the air. He looks as though he's got slight change, but he's a little bit more bent knee, so he can get to the ball a little bit closer to the ball, and he can actually utilize the balance of his head position in his hands to get his hands through. I thought he looked very, very good. But when I was looking at the review, and I must admit, it would worry me if I was an Indian fan looking at asking or having responsibility on Rishi Pant to make the final call on a review system, because I just look at him sometimes and think he's having a conversation with somebody on the crowd. He's watching that aeroplane thinking, I wonder what film they're watching as they're going over Trent Bridge and things like that. He looks as though he's completely disinterested in what he's doing other than having a joke and a laugh with his mates. And if you're Virat Kohli and you're looking across and you're thinking, I've got to go with him. He's got to be the last call on this. I sometimes can see why Virat Kohli sometimes gets it wrong.
Yeah, sure. All right. It's a more seasoned Rishabh Pant this time in England. And let's see how this tour goes for him, not just with that, but also behind the stumps. He's got a big role to play when it comes to these reviews. But it's lunchtime on day one, and it's been a fun session already. So much to talk about. Test cricket tends to do that. We're going to spend a little more time just talking about something that I guess is important in cricket, and it comes in light, of course, Ben Stokes, one of the premier players of the world, one of the most enigmatic players of the world, taking time out from this series because he wants to focus on his mental well-being. It takes us to a conversation on mental health in cricket that you just need to have again and again. Can't be stressed on how important it is to ensure, especially in COVID times, that the mental well-being of players is is paramount and is taken care of. And maybe with Steve and Laxman, we'll go into that chat. Steve, Ben Stokes has perhaps put the spotlight back on an issue which needs to be discussed often. What is it telling us? A key player, someone who's such a big player of the England side, wanting time out to take care of its mental well-being. It's telling us something, isn't it?
I think it is telling us something. I think it's telling us something that we've got to be concerned. I think we have got to be concerned about this, especially in the COVID world we live in the times that we've had. Talked about it earlier in the week, and it's when you look at there's a wide number of things that you can go on with Ben. I think what you've got to detach is mental toughness, the strength of character that Ben Stokes is on the field, to what's happening with him and mentally off the field. The brain is such a weird and wonderful thing that it can be unpredictable. And I think because of what COVID world has given us in these biosecure bubbles, it is very, very hard. I was critical of how we are treating not just cricketers, but over in England, we look at the way that broadcasting rights are now that you had to carry on with the Premier League football behind closed doors and the stadiums. Teams were in biosecure bubbles. It was very, very difficult to breathe almost. And that's got to take its toll, especially when you're going into foreign countries, in different environments. And I think something had to give and something had to break. And I think that was the big thing with Ben. But one of the big things that I think Ben has found it difficult, and I don't know this for certain because obviously I haven't spoke to Ben because of these these COVID world we live in. The loss of his father. I think the loss of his father is huge for Benjamin Stokes because of what Jed was, and I know personally know what Jed was as a man, and how highly regard that Ben had. He was his sounding board. He was somebody who had played professional sport, managed professional sport, understood individuals in professional sport, and I think because Ben had that, every time he could pick up the phone, I think when he's now sadly not with us, I think that has taken an effect on Ben Stokes. So I don't think he'd be the first. I really don't think he'd be the first. And I think this is a warning shot to sport in general that we have to take this seriously because it is your mental health and the mental well-being of individuals is very,